Okay, let's see.
This is Loving My Veteran.
Oh,
We're an organization that tries to help veterans, their spouses, and loved ones deal with people like this group here. All of us have PTSD in one way, shape, or form. First responder, veterans, and we all deal with it. Their spouses, and how we're programmed one way to go and defend and conquer, and never deprogrammed one way when we get home, and how we can function in society, let alone function in our home, what we fought for, and how can we work with that? What works with us works one way. What worked for you might work for you, but we're trying to provide an outlet, a place that you can feel free to talk about and not be judged, a place that is going to give you a different avenue to pursue besides having medications tossed at you, besides having arguments with your loved ones and calling that I'm going to kill myself number and press 1 because that's fucking stupid. We need to be normal people. And yes, I swear like a freaking sailor. It's not going to change who we are. We're here to be comfortable. And we're having a conversation tonight about what we're wanting to do, what we choose to do to try and better work with all of you, and how that could potentially work with your family, with your dynamics, to work with someone with PTSD in the household, or with PTSD in public, or just your PTSD. So we don't have to worry about you going out there and doing something stupid. Princess?
for me, I guess on our car ride home today, he said, what made you want to do this? What made you want to create this group? And it came from a conversation that I had with my veteran and his best friend who's sitting down there as well.
Best friend. We bust each other's balls all the time.
I know, right? But it came from that. We were sitting at my mom's one night, and as we're sitting there having this conversation, that was the first time that I realized that as a first responder, and all the stuff I had seen over my years probably made it where I had PTSD too. And we talked about how we were different, how each one of us felt different as we went through this.
Oh yeah, we've all had this conversation without recording.
And so as we went through this conversation, I met Carl late into, we were adults. And the one thing I always said to him was, the only thing I regret about not meeting him sooner was not being the one he came home to after he was deployed.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean,
now,
same as like when Damon and Michelle have made the same comment numerous times.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel?
It is. It's the same thing. It's hard. You got to be there to support your veteran. I've learned so much on what I can do personally to make life easier to navigate for the both of us. And unless you listen to one another and you're open, I mean, obviously we're going to have our challenges and we need to learn how to evolve together and navigate this together, but it's a learning experience every day. We're not going to have the answers overnight. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes good communication.
Right. Well, that was the one thing. Exactly. Great point. That was the one thing that Junkie Love down there told me flat out years and years and years ago, was that patience is a virtue. And I didn't have that in my toolbox to be able to deal with then, but he gave that to me. And that's when I was going through a divorce and going through my personal issues and having bad dates that pop up in my head. And here I am. I remind her all the time, patience is a virtue.
I don't listen, but okay.
It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard.
But there's a way to navigate it healthier, I think, for both parties.
I mean, for myself, I've been out for 30 years and it seems like yesterday. And it really doesn't go away. And I had the coping skills to deal with everything. And that's the reason I come up with Redirect, because it works so well with other veterans.
Mhm.
And once they were on that, they can redirect. They're not totally fixed, but they're totally have a different outlook in life. And that's kind of where I come in. And with all the tools here in front of us right now, I think we should do very well with that.
Mhm.
Besides the other programs that we can put together too. So
Yeah, definitely. And I think it'll be benefit. I mean, Jeremy, what do you think? Do you think this is going to work? I mean, I believe it'll work and help everyone else. I mean, you're a veteran yourself. You're airborne, 82nd. I mean, you flat out know, and your master's degree and how you work with kids on your daily basis. And
Let him talk.
how do you feel?
Well, I laugh because we go back to that initial conversation, and Stacy talking about the different things that we had spoke about.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the most interesting points that was brought up that night was how it was easier for me to talk about the things that I went through and the things that I saw versus you not feeling comfortable talking about things.
Exactly.
And
I
I
wasn't
remember saying
comfortable.
to you that it took me years of holding everything in and, being divorced because I internalized so much, and all of that rage and that anger and the hurt and the loss of good friends and brothers.
Yeah.
That all came out in ways that just pushed her right out the door, which looking back I wish it happened a little bit sooner, but it is what it is. But I think for me, what the turning point was standing in my garage smoking a cigarette while my son was upstairs sleeping, and the notion that if I didn't talk to somebody, if I didn't get it out, that I would have just hung it up. And then thinking of my two kids and thinking of how selfish that was for me, that was what caused me that night to go ahead and call the Veterans Hotline and just start talking. And to be able to sit with the first therapist who, oddly enough, referred me to another one because I was too much for him. But this woman that I sat talking with, who didn't take any crap from me and gave it all right back to me, finally let me realize that what I've wanted all along was to be able to sit down with the woman that I love and say, here's how my PTSD started. Here's what goes through my mind. Here's what my pain is and why. So now I have a woman who understands my cues and my triggers and knows how to be able to sit.
And it's important that we
We lost Jeremy for a second.
Let me still speak.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, hon. My bad. Oh.
Jeremy's back.
We're back. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Hello. We lost you.
She hit your head?
Uh-oh.
You got an injured kid.
Oh, no.
She'll be all right. We're going to give her some Motrin and water, and she'll walk it off. She'll be fine.
Step on a Lego?
Yeah, what? No, she smacked her head on the arm more while we were horsing around. So we're going to give her some Ranger candy, and she'll be good.
Nice. Give her a little Swamp Fox and, Benadryl.
I think it's so important what Jeremy said in reference to like relationships and you wanting, a wife or a spouse that you could share what you felt comfortable sharing, right? And that she was there to listen to you and help you navigate through this mental illness or disease. And they're saying it's not, right, Stacy?
Yeah,
According to
It's not.
right. It
Yeah.
technically is not a disease, it's a disorder.
Right.
But it does have an ICD-10 code that they can bill from.
Yeah.
But
So it's technically listed in all medical journals. It's
Mhm.
listed as a disease. So all they're going to do is just medicate you, throw you out the door, and not try to get you to function in society. They're not going to try and get you to function at home. It's
Yep.
kind of like, oh, this is going to be a horrible equate. It's kind of like I don't want to say this.
don't then. If you don't, it's usually a good thing that you don't.
I'm going to edit this, but it's kind of like putting when the
Probably a good
parents,
thing to stop there, right?
right? It's kind of like
Beep.
the generation that is coming in now that's creating all the problems in our country and all these teenagers that are instigating everything and creating problems for the veterans, the ones that are watching our country go to shit. that what we tried to defend, to come home to love, and now this is the generation that has been thrown into teachers' laps and say, hey, raise my kid. We both have to work. There's no middle class. You raise our kid. And now we're tossing that out to somebody else to do.
Yeah.
Now, how does it come back to here?
Sorry, I have to have my monster. Sorry, function. Well, it doesn't. And the thing that,
I just think we're having a moment of silence for that.
sorry for my monster. The thing that really got to me was that night in particular. And Jeremy, I'm hoping I'm free to share this story, but Jeremy, and when we were all talking, talked about like some of the things that he was told to do, not asked, told as you go into the military. You were told to do, went against his moral grain, the way he was brought up as a child.
We were
And
talking
so
about that on the way home.
then when you come home, you're supposed to just function and have this
Excuse me.
thing that you've done that was against your moral grain. And you already have such a low self-esteem personally, that now you really feel unlovable. And I think that's part of the reason why we see divorce rates higher. We see so much. And when Carl and I first got together, a lot of it for me was I had to learn about PTSD. As a paramedic, I thought I knew everything. Until you live with it, you don't have a
So much to learn.
yeah. And so I joined some support groups thinking, oh, well, this is going to be helpful. And what I found was I really do believe that almost everybody who joins these support groups are there because they want help and they want to save their marriage or their relationship. It's turned into like this bitter free-for-all because you're caught in a cycle that I call drowning. And we put that on our Facebook page and our website about, a story about drowning. You don't know where to get out. You don't even know how to grab the life ring because they're angry. So they're angry, so now you're angry, and you're angry, so they're angry, and all
It just
you're
escalates
doing
into nothing.
is playing off of each other, and it makes it worse. And so anger quickly turns love into resentment. Who was the one that made the comment about layaway? It was Michelle.
Michelle did.
Expectations are nothing more than, it's resentment is nothing more than expectations put on layaway.
Yeah, and that's what happens. We get with them, and a lot of them remember a better time, or like for Carl and I who met after the PTSD thing, you remember the good times, and then you think back to in the middle of this thing that's happening, you go back and you're like, why am I here? I want that back. And one of the things I talked about this week was making accommodations. I didn't say that you have to go out and make concessions, and there's a big difference there.
Right.
Somebody who's paralyzed and in a wheelchair, if the veteran came home, and I'm not saying the veterans in a wheelchair don't have PTSD, that's not what I'm saying. But if there's a visible injury and the veteran comes home in a wheelchair or comes home without limbs, there are accommodations made in that home for them to transfer and wheelchair accessible and whatever.
That's an injury you see right up front, right off the bat. Not something that's going to sit dormant, potentially dormant for 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 20 years.
It's not invisible.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be those triggers that come out.
And we make accommodations. So, they have slide chairs and handicap accessible bathrooms. And so spouses in that sense, when we talk about the caregiver side, which is the word I hate, by the way, and you'll hear me say I hate it all the time. But when we talk about from that perspective, you would do anything if your veteran was in the wheelchair. You're going to do anything to make his life easier to transfer and do whatever. But you don't want to make a concession to stop a trigger.
Right.
And I find that just so disheartening. But I think part of it is because the spouses already feel like they're drowning, and why the VA does the best they can with the sheer volume. You know, we talk about the VA throwing money and the therapy is farther and further apart and they get pills and they get whatever. But think about the sheer volume of veterans who are funneling through this system.
Yep.
How do you get quality when you're serving a quantity?
You can't possibly educate them, I don't think, on all the resources or tools needed to navigate
So,
together.
I mean, there's
But there's also the issue too that when you look at a lot of the veterans, so you've got veterans who have PTSD because of training incidents where
Mhm.
you know might not have seen combat, but their buddies died in front of them, or you know training accidents like my friend's parachute that didn't open, and I watched him smack Mother Earth in front of me. It was like something out of a movie. But you go then to a support group and you have one veteran who will say to you, well, you don't deserve to have PTSD. You know, you
Yeah.
weren't in combat. Versus
Exactly.
the next one who says, well, he might not have been in combat, but he went through the same stuff, all the training, and he saw people die and he did this and that. And so it's one of those things where now you've got people comparing who's more worthy of having PTSD. And
It's not worth
I
a
sat
pissing
in a group
contest.
and well, and I sat in a group and I listened to that, and I said to the one fella, I said, nobody deserves to have PTSD.
Right.
Nobody deserves it. You know, you take 18-year-old kids and you teach us how to kill, and you teach us that's our mission in life is jump out of airplanes, blow shit up, and kill people.
Well, that's
But
exactly what
when
Stacey
we
was talking about.
transition, right. So when we transition, where was the hey? Now that we taught you how to kill, let's teach you how to deal with it.
Yep.
Well,
And so that goes to Stacey talking about the VA. You can throw all the money in the world at a problem and not come anywhere close to fixing it because
Uh-uh.
you're not actually going after the root cause of where do we need.
Right.
And so
How many times, brother, you and I sat there over the
you
years?
sadly have so many veterans that tell you what you need.
Well, I think Damon was the one the other day that made the very valid point when we were talking in something else, that they're not taught how to reprogram the computer. We programmed you one way. Wasn't that the analogy you used,
Yeah.
Damon?
Like a computer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you.
it is. It is exactly what it is.
They don't unprogram you.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, I got a pat on the back and kick them butt and see you later. Good job.
Yeah.
Next. You know,
Here's your papers. Thanks for serving. Bye.
yeah, bye.
Well, and I think another big issue is that we as a country, especially, and I know it didn't affect you so much, you were very young coming into that 9/11, but post 9/11, we brought a ton of people in and they had a cause.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we're going to go get them, we're going to get this done, we're going to get this over, they bombed our towers, we're done, we're through. And then it drug on, and then it drug on, and then it drug on. And in the beginning, people were very supportive of the whole post 9/11 movement. But now that we're 19 years, this Friday will be 19 years into it. Now that we're 19 years into it, people are like, well, why are they still in Afghanistan? And why are they still in Kuwait? And why are they still in Iraq? And why are they still here? And what are they doing here? And so now the veteran gets blamed for being the one who's over there. And it really makes me think back to the Vietnam era veterans.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember when my ex-husband was in the Navy and we did a parade, 4th of July parade in 1991, and we invited the Vietnam era veterans to this parade. And when they marched through, people were applauding them. And at the end of the parade, we were standing there talking to them, and the tears are rolling down their faces. And they said, that's the first time anybody thanked us collectively. It had been over for 20 years.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
common.
that's the first time somebody said, thank you.
That's got to change. That's got to change.
Well, the
I don't know.
mentality
I
doesn't
think
change.
the benefit for them, the benefit that we all have from the Vietnam veterans is that they are truly the ones that brought awareness to PTSD.
Yeah.
Oh,
They are
yeah.
truly the ones that brought this to the forefront. to be able to say, hey, you know, I mean, I was fortunate my father wasn't able to serve. And I listened to stories of my uncle talking about planes slamming into the decks of aircraft carriers, or family friends talking about what it was like to trudge through the bush and not know if Charlie was going to pop up from the ground, or, you know, the myriad of things that they saw. But then you look at the guys who didn't get the help, that the same guys who would talk about it, though, and they don't talk about it. They drank themselves to death. They shot drugs to deal with the demons and whatnot. And unfortunately, we have so many guys coming home now doing the same thing because they don't know any other way. And I think that's the important thing for what we're doing, is to be able to say to people, there is an option. There is a way out of this. That you don't have to deal with these demons by yourself.
But on a personal note, isn't that the same conversation that I chose to have with a peer versus a doctor right off the bat? Years ago, when in North Carolina with you, it was wanting to talk to a peer versus a doctor. You know the spot I was in. I was having dates, going through a divorce and everything else. Everything just hit me all at once like a ton of freaking bricks. I didn't know how to deal with the date. I didn't know how to deal with the divorce or anything else. You and I worked through the divorce. I worked through the dates I had. And like I've always told you, I owe you a lot more.
And I think the other thing too is that a lot of spouses get so uptight if they don't share the details. No, I don't get uptight with you if they're not sharing. Initially I did. When we first started going at it, it was like, well, why can't you tell me what's going on? And then when you sit back, it's not that they're keeping something from you. Whatever they went through was so horrific that it gives them nightmares and they deal with it. Why would they want to share it with a loved one? And sometimes they do reach out to their buddies. I mean, if Carl calls Jeremy,
He's not going to answer. We're going to punch
yeah, he's not going to answer. He's going to call me. I'll call him and he'll answer. But if he calls his buddy, they understand and they relate. And that's where Loving My Veteran, I think, is different, because we bring together all the parties. There is a place for spouses and partners in one, we're all together, but then there's a place for spouses and partners to have their private, not that we don't want them involved, but a safe place to vent. And we're working on our next step, which will be veteran peer groups, so that they have a private place to vent. But then there's also where they get insight for both. And I know that the other day, Jeremy and I were blessed enough to respond to a message we got where the girl got perspective from both of us. And it really was eye-opening for her.
That helped her quite a bit.
It did.
Jeremy, are you there? Or is Jeremy thingy again?
And you know, Stacy, to piggyback off of your point, to piggyback off of what you said earlier, because you and I had that conversation of, there was so much that as the veteran, be looking at the decisions that I made in a leadership capacity, the things that I did, the orders that I gave, and how that cost somebody else, you know, and then looking at somebody and having to have that feeling inside that if I tell you these things as my spouse or even a family member, how are you going to react? What are you going to think of me? Now I had to make this decision in the heat of battle that cost somebody their life. Then the last thing I want is for you to look at me differently, because now I'm the one living with that. And I think that a lot of times that you know, a lot of your veterans aren't going to talk to their spouses about it, because we don't want you to look at us differently. It's hard enough to know that, you know, here's three guys that were dear friends of mine, that were my brothers, and because of a decision that I made, the command decision that I thought was the right thing at the time, now they didn't go home to their family.
Exactly.
And so to sit back and talk about that to somebody who was never there, you know, you start to worry, well, now when we're talking, we're having a conversation and you're smiling, not, That's the kind of thing some people think about.
Well, they definitely need to think about it. I mean, it's more along the lines of right back of being able to talk to somebody who's actually been there and done this versus one who hasn't been there. And sometimes it's easier just to talk to a peer or a brethren or sister than it is to talk to a doctor.
Well,
And I think veterans need those peer groups as well as the spouses and caregivers. I don't care for that word either. But as far as the spouses, I think we all benefit from that.
we do, and I think that this group of us have really understood a lot more just by communicating with each other, whether it is all of us at the same time. Michelle is I can't even imagine what time she gets up because she's 2 hours behind me. But at 5 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, Michelle and I are having a conversation. And, we talk about things, and I think the one topic that we've gotten onto is that learning to differentiate between what is PTSD relating into our relationship and what is just you guys having testosterone. What's the difference there?
Yeah.
We get in this habit of either using PTSD as the blame or as the crutch. And it doesn't define either one of the three of you that are sitting here. It isn't Damon PTSD and Carl PTSD and Jeremy PTSD. You are three individual people who have an enormous amount to give. And Jeremy's the dad to two amazing kids. And he's a father way before he's Jeremy, the PTSD guy.
Time out. He's also a great spouse to a woman who's working at, what is it, almost 9 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
Still working because she's as devoted to kids as he is. And that's what helps him, bringing it home to kids. And that not help you work through you is working with kids.
Well, and it started when I was a drill sergeant in a boot camp for court adjudicated youth, and teaching them anger regression skills and structured learning training and all the other things that we had to teach them, and understanding in my mind that in order for me to teach you how to do this stuff, I have to buy into it myself. And so working with juveniles, that was a saving grace for me, because that's something that really didn't ever think was going to be a winning combination. But it's like all the stuff that I gave to Stacy, all the stuff that I write, and 90% of what I write will have nothing to do with the military. But when I'm having that high anxiety or that high depression, or an ambulance goes by my office and just sparks something in me, it gives me that outlet to sit and write and say, I might just pick something like the light bulb and just write a whole story about a light bulb. And because I taught that to these juveniles, that was what made me realize that was a tool that would work for me.
And I think you bring up a valid point, Jeremy. Everybody we're given tools, and there's so many tools available out there. But what works for you may not necessarily work for Damon or Carl. What works for me may not necessarily work for Christy or Michelle. But it's when we come together and I can take part of what works for Michelle, and part of what works for Christy, and part of what works for me, I can now pull together what resources work best and what plan works best for me. And I think that is a huge thing, that by having open conversations and putting our life to the forefront and being honest and raw. I mean, we're real. We're not sitting here with some high tech whiteboards and producers and whatever.
No, but what I think is funny is, starting off topic, and hello, ADD. Now, Jeremy, what did Maggie come right and do? Came right to you, right? Who are you petting on your left side there, big guy? Who are you petting on the left side there, big guy? Right.
That's my Maggie.
Yes.
That's my Maggie.
Yes, it is.
She's supposed to be an emotional support dog, but has made me an emotional support human.
Yeah, that's what Mom
This is
says.
why I went off on this tangent, because I'm sitting here talking with all of you all, and I've got this one doing the same damn thing. Just sitting here begging.
Mine was staring at us, and now she gave up and fell asleep.
Well, I mean, she hears us talking, so comes over and just gives us something to do, gives us lovings. I mean, right back to what we were talking about before, the unconditional love, it's just a support structure.
Mm-hmm.
That support structure, whether it's a fur baby. I mean, Stacy got mad at me before. Not really mad. She just stopped me from being an idiot because I wanted to go outside and grab a chicken and come in. I figured everyone had their dogs. I was like, all right, I'm going to grab a chicken and start petting the chicken. It's actually his butter's chicken. It's
Like pet
Jeremy's butter.
chickens.
It stays
I
at
don't-
It stays in our house. We have custody of his daughter's chicken, Megan's chicken, Houdini.
He's the only one that gets out and runs around, comes up, jumps on his lap, plays with the dogs, and then goes and gets back.
He's
So
a chicken.
an emotional support chicken, apparently.
There you go.
Michelle, you have a hat on that represents something really dear to your name, right?
I do, and it is an organization. It's called PTSD TBI Dogs and Tags of Wyoming, and it's very special to Damon and I because we rescued our girl Tangi, 2 months, and we took her up there to. We got some information from the VA, and this lady was recommended to us. Took her up there for training, and Tangi's actually trained for PTSD, and she's actually able to read Damon and like sit and calm him, or it's bizarre what she does. She's trained for a lot of other things, mobility and so forth, but
She's actually smarter than I am.
this organization,
You were Army and you ain't saying much. Wait, I was Army.
Both of ours are smarter than
Don't even
The
say nothing,
organization-
Jeremy.
I was going to say that statement would have been true if he'd have been a Marine, but you know, Army guys are highly intelligent.
no, they definitely, you know, like Carl was saying,
Any
if
of
you
you
got,
Marines that are watching, you know I love you with a spree de coronal.
Let her finish her statement. God. See what happens when we get in a group thing.
No, because it's a great camaraderie. We're all there. It doesn't matter if you're Air Force. It doesn't matter if you're Marine.
Can she finish her talking about the dog, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yes, ma'am.
anyway, we met
Hey,
a
leave
lot
my
of
ex-wife out of this.
very nice people up through this organization and dogs, and she provides a lot of training and the animals too to a lot of the veterans. So I would love to talk to her one day and interview her, and I know we've got a lot of resources in that regard there. So
We do. And I think that that's the other thing that we're working hard on. And for people who are just coming to kind of know us, this idea came into being, what, Jeremy, less than 2 months ago? And in less than 2 months, we've just expanded. And I'm one of these people who believe that God puts the right people in your life at the right time. And Damon and Michelle really were put in our lives at the right time.
Good.
I
and you
mean,
guys were put in our lives at the right time too. So
you know,
Touche.
touche.
it is one of those things. And, you know, when we start to make this list of stuff we need to accomplish, and because we see the need is so large
Mm-hmm.
that we just want to reach out. And I know that Carl mentioned and Jeremy has mentioned, I'm a first responder. I've been a paramedic for, Carl will rephrase this, for over 17 years, and an EMS for over 20. I'm also a fourth generation firefighter, third generation firefighter. My son is a fourth generation into that. But I think the thing with PTSD
Oh, Chucky.
is that PTSD has such a stigma behind it.
It does.
Spoken illness. Military are supposed to be the strong backbone saviors. First responders are the strong backbone saviors. We're the people who go in and we're supposed to be so tough. And this past year, one of the guys that I went to EMT school with, and when you bond like that, it's kind of like y'all in basic training and through your rest of your training, when you bond like that, and those are the people when you run the calls,
Yeah.
and it's just the two of you, somebody has your back. He had 2 daughters and a wife and was overwhelmed with what he had seen in his life, and some health issues came into play, and he killed himself.
That's where Stacy and I get along together this way, is because the stuff that she's gone through and the bonding she's had with one other person is like being the scout that I was, and bonding with one other person and spending all that time. It hits home.
And one person dying is one person too many.
Too many.
And we brush it off. And working EMS in Savannah, the number of homeless veterans, and you know, I read a thing, and I will get it posted to our page and to the website this week. This is actually came directly from the VA, and it was on the numbers. We're talking about,
Yeah.
and they actually went in and said that the matrix they're using now is skewed.
It's very skewed. They're not
That
getting.
came directly from the Department of Veterans Affairs, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it did. And so and this was from the head of the Department of Veteran Affairs, and it's like on their stuff, and they're talking about that the way we calculate the numbers so that it looks better has been skewed, and they're taking certain things out of those numbers.
Yeah.
So in the reality, it's easy to broadcast, especially if you don't want to funnel the funds that are needed into suicide. It's really easy to say, well, they're down to 17 a day now. 17 a day is still too many. Okay, but the real numbers you're saying are way higher than that, because here's your problem. The number of homeless that kill themselves that are not in a VA system because the VA requires your medicines get mailed to you, or they don't have transportation.
Right.
Those numbers, if you're not committing suicide and reporting it to the VA, those numbers are skewed. Well, veterans as a whole, or a lot of them, are so resentful and non-trusting of the VA. And I'm not saying that the VA is a bad thing, but I'm saying there is a true distrust, because again, it's quantity that you're funneling through here. So they feel pushed off to the side. Those numbers are not accurate.
No, they're not.
And we saw on the streets of Savannah
Yeah.
way more than what is even being reported. These people didn't even have family to call. They've overdosed in a homeless camp, and there's nobody to call. There's nobody to be at their funeral. There's nobody to get their flag.
And now that we have this whole new form of control in place, I love COVID, they're never going to get that recognition. That's right back to
Probably
hitting,
not.
hitting home. Everything that we have to deal with, watching our country go to shit. And
Well, it looks like a war zone. I mean, some of the pictures on the media is ridiculous. I mean, what's the difference? It looks just like it did when you guys were over there, I'm sure, in some photos you've seen.
I think you saw the picture where I did the 4 photos.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were taken. One was taken in Iraq, one was taken in Afghanistan, and 2 were taken in the United States. One was in Portland. And the other one was in Minneapolis.
What's the difference?
And
You
I
know that-
showed the 4 pictures, and I showed them to guys who had been there.
Right.
And
don't see a
they
difference.
could not identify which ones were where.
That's scary.
Scary is when you deal with the trigger that you just looked at and see just targets. You just saw a target. Now, for some people, for some of us, that's going to be a trigger. That's going to set them off, and it might not do it right then when they're unwinding it that day, thinking about the day. That's what's going to snap. When they're, talking to their spouse about their day, they've had a day at work, and they're seeing something like that. Not that it's a bad thing. It's how is it going to be handled at the end of the day at home.
Right.
That's the point we're trying to prove, is when they're talking with their spouse or their loved one or the battle buddy or whoever they're working with and talking to, that's going to be a potential trigger of whether they see it or not. That's going to create a snap. All they saw were targets.
And with COVID going on, I mean, obviously that's what we're talking about too, but
Yeah.
A lot of people, Stacy, and we were talking about your post the other day in reference to that, like, how is your veteran reacting right now with the current state of the world? And I think it falls into place now, and it's affecting all of us with or without PTSD, I know. So I can't even imagine, as you're saying, Carl. Like
Well,
how
apparently I'm
intense
chain smoking, so
you guys are, I mean, I know Damon and I have to turn off the media at times during the day and,
Yeah.
Try to not look at all the riots and all the stuff going on.
But do you ever watch Dame, do you ever watch the news?
We're bad. We watch Fox
Too much.
News. Yes.
Too much.
Yeah.
I just don't. I refuse to.
I have to have him turn it off sometimes, huh?
Yeah. I can watch it in the morning. That's about it. Got enough.
I watch the
Yeah.
weather.
Yeah.
I don't need to see. I'm already scrolling through social media and seeing, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a few trusted sources that I know that I can have a conversation with and get the proper information from, and that's it. And they're held close to my soul, and that's it. The rest of them are.
No, I'm looking at Jeremy's
Oh, I think
bedroom.
oh, that's his man cave. He's playing Xbox. He's downtiming. Well, he's got decom going on. But I stopped.
No, I had to go.
Like, I'll put my
I
phone
had
down.
to go do daddy duties of saying night night prayers.
Oh, you big mush.
That was so
Say
sweet.
night night first.
Awesome.
You're the best dad.
But I turned my phone off. Like, I won't.
I had a great role model.
But like you were saying, Damon, it's like I did try to watch the news, and when all of this started, I looked at Stacy and said, "We've done this to small countries. The
Yeah.
easiest way, right? We've done this to small countries. The easiest way to blow a country apart is from the inside out, because
Yeah,
you can't do it from the
exactly.
inside. In this country, you can't do it from the outside in. You
So
gotta
it's
do it
very
from the inside out.
similar for you guys, and that's why it hits home, right? Like,
Yeah, you do it from the inside out. And anytime you're on a peacekeeping mission or you're on some sort of mission that you're, humanitarian aid or other missions, those are the ones that create a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Let me flag for this one.
Sorry.
Those are the ones that create problems because you can't get to us from the outside. And the best way to blow apart a country is from the inside. And when that happens, now you have a lot of veterans with PTSD that are watching home
Yeah.
Exactly.
Load.
Warzone. Yeah.
It's not a safe place anymore where, home's like the only place that is safe, right?
Yeah. And it's frustrating, but I give you props, bro. If you're going to watch the news and if you have your levels in place, your toolbox is there and you want to do it, go for it. But I can't.
We don't watch as much as we used to. We
No.
definitely have turned it off.
Well, and I think that I met a lady through one of the groups who it just broke my heart. Her son had served in I don't remember if it was Iraq or Afghanistan, and I hate that I don't remember. But he had served and then he had come home, and on a humanitarian mission to a country they can't even talk about. And while they were there delivering humanitarian, they were taking prisoners of war.
Yep.
Okay. We don't hear that in the news. Nowhere in the news are you going to hear that because we weren't supposed to be there, you know, according to the world. He
Right.
home and can't talk about it and can't share it with anybody. And as a result, this 20-some-year-old kid kills himself
Mm-hmm.
because he was delivering aid
And now
and
he
they
has
were
killed.
taking prisoners of war, but they
Right.
can't. And I think that's what kind of irritates me with, I'm going to get emotional and I don't want to get emotional. I've never hated this country. I was born and raised in Yorktown, Virginia, where Cornwallis surrendered, well, his troops surrendered to George Washington. That's where I was raised, where this country was founded. And
Yeah.
love this country as much as I do. And then to see firsthand what this country has done to our military, to the very people who protect them and afford them the rights that were provided to them in the Constitution, and to treat them the way they have, is sick.
It is.
As a country doing enough to help them.
We're not.
That's what makes me angry. And I try not to, so I'm trying to take my anger when we formed Loving My Veteran and turn it into something positive.
Like you were saying, Damon, redirect.
Redirect. Yep.
I was so angry. And I'm,
It is.
you know, I get angry at some of these people who are like, leave them, leave them, leave them. But I can't be angry anymore. I feel for them because they have been put in a place by not having the proper tools given to them.
Exactly.
Per side.
And that's where Loving My Veteran comes in, where we provide them with those tools and those resources to navigate and live a healthy life with PTSD and with your partner / caregiver, whatever the case may be, your children, you know, etc.
Yeah, we could talk all night because we just could do that. But we will do a ton more YouTube stuff. Please follow us on YouTube. We'll be on Facebook as long as the regulations allow. We have a website, lovingmyveteran.com, and we're working on, was it MeWe? I don't know what it's called.
MeWe?
MeWe. She wants to use MeWe.
We're working on MeWe.
No, MeWe.
For a long time.
We're working on that
I want Chinese food now.
as another platform because, again, where we're getting stuff out.
Yes, I want number 5.
Number 7. Where we're getting stuff out.
Wow. Okay.
I'm trying to be positive here, and
We're trying to
I can't help the fact that you want beef and broccoli.
No, I'm having fun with Jeremy.
We're trying to get
I'm not having that. That was your order. I'm just saying. I was helping you to remember what a number 7 is.
I don't give any orders anymore. It's one of those. You said creamy cinnamon guy. I'm like, all right, I want combo number 5, and you said number 7, and I'm like, I still want Chinese food after his comment at MeWe.
So,
Anyway,
the platforms are getting closed down as we're trying to get this out. So we'll have a lot more on YouTube as we go. There'll be a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of informers. I know Damon's working on a special project on redirect
Yes.
that
That'll
we'll
be
be able to
That's gonna be awesome.
use as a resource.
Redirect. Can't wait.
I know
It's gonna be
Michelle's
awesome.
going to do some interviews. I have some people we're going to interview. Jeremy's going to talk some because that's just what he does, and he does it so well.
Oh, your patter.
And get this out. And I know that we're going to put this out here. we really would love to have somebody come and help us that can focus on the children and what they're facing living in a
Yeah.
family where PTSD is prevalent.
Yes.
Our biggest resource to that would have been Jeremy's other half, Christy, but
She's
she is
overwhelmed with a
doing
lot going on.
foster
She's got
care stuff, and God knows her plate is full, and she is a saint for doing that.
it's not just one plate.
No, I know when we were
With me, so
right, just have
I
a
mean that
platter.
alone make you get put on suicide watch.
Look, brother, your big old platter.
She gets the platter. We were literally on vacation with Jeremy at the lake, and a hurricane was coming, and God love Christy literally had to do a plan for every single child that they were dealing with and where they would
Aw.
do. Her plate is super full, and
Yeah.
She didn't get a chance to relax, anything. It was just
what she does is so needed in this world. But we really are looking for somebody who can help us really direct the children who are living in this environment as well, and how we can be successful. So,
Okay.
right, I'm telling you people good night because I have the munchies.
munchies.
Well, before you go for the munchies, I also want to say to people, I think that it's really
Uh-oh.
Come on, Max
Can we
Headroom.
take a donation for his internet?
Yeah,
'Cause it's
it's-
horrible.
all right, whatever, Max Headroom. You got stuck there, buddy.
Come on, spit it out, buddy.
Mouth is open. We can see it.
He's
You
getting
can
ready.
do it.
Wait for
pressure.
it.
And then
There it is.
Start over, we
Yay!
lost you.
You lost you, buddy. You're frozen.
Wait,
Your mouth wide open. You pulled a Max Headroom.
So you were saying, what were you saying?
I don't know, where'd you lose me?
I don't know. Your mouth was
Before
just
we
like,
go, it's really important. That was all we got.
And your mouth was open, and it was just like,
Okay, shut up. So anywho, what I was saying is very important for us to remember that are just as likely to commit suicide as a veteran is, being overwhelmed.
Hey, I'll interpret that from
I'm
the
frozen
frozen
again, aren't I?
there we go. Yeah.
yeah, you're
Just as
frozen again.
important that we
You
remember
all are frozen.
spouses are just as likely to commit suicide as the veteran. Is that what you were saying, Jeremy? He's frozen.
With your mouth open again, dude. Except for you got like this chunky smile. You're all,
I think
I love you.
I think that was
I
a
hope so.
fact that kind of surprised Damon when I told him that the other day about spouses.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think
Well, it's okay because on my screen you look like you got your finger shoved up your nose, so it's all good.
And I think the other thing we really miss in this is we have this stereotype that PTSD from a veteran is all men. And
Right.
the highest, fastest growing demographic is
Is women.
women.
Women. And why we have to address that, the whys about that.
And that's going to be ugly, and people aren't going to want to hear it, but the sexual assaults that went on are huge.
Oh yeah.
Arda,
Yeah.
you're not frozen. Can you repeat that, please?
He's frozen.
He's frozen again.
He's frozen.
I think he has a frozen button he's doing on a purpose. Wakey, wakey.
I tickled him. He's moving a little bit. I got the fun button.
I love it. Every now and then all I get is so I'm loving to see this play black so I can actually hear half the conversations.
But your facial expressions are so grand, though.
We're going to start like doing. Let's all do Jeremy facial expressions.
I'm not even gonna touch that one.
How does that song go? Fuck you and you and you.
Beep. This has got to be said.
Beep, beep. PG.
No.
PG. PG.
I told y'all PG.
We said NC-17 or higher.
No.
You already lit your
Leave it
lips.
out later.
All right, so we will talk to y'all soon. Please follow us for the rest of the. You can hit unrecord, babe.
You were still talking.
Bye.
We're not
So,
recording.
yeah,